Have you ever been brushing your teeth, walking to class, lying in bed, or staring out a car window, and suddenly, your mind starts arguing with someone who is not even there? You imagine what they might say. Then you imagine your perfect comeback. Then they say something worse. Then you defend yourself again. And before you know it, your body is tense, your jaw is tight, your chest feels slightly charged, and you are emotionally reacting to a conversation that has not happened and may never happen. Maybe it is your parent. Maybe a friend. Maybe someone who misunderstood you. Maybe someone who has not even replied to your message yet. And the weirdest part is this: a small part of you knows it is imaginary. But another part of you feels like it needs to keep going. You are not broken for doing this. You are not secretly negative. You are not too sensitive, just because your brain keeps building arguments in the background. Most of the time, your brain is not trying to torture you. It is trying to rehearse safety. Stay with this for a few minutes. Because once you understand what your mind is actually practicing, these imaginary arguments start to look less like madness, and more like a survival strategy that got a little too loud. So today, we are talking about why your brain rehearses arguments that never happen. Not just why you overthink, but why the overthinking takes the specific shape of conflict, defense, explanation, proving your point, and preparing for emotional attack. And there is another layer underneath this, which we will explore in the next video. Sometimes the mind does not just rehearse future arguments, it also keeps dragging old mistakes back into the room. As if punishing yourself could somehow prevent pain from happening again. But first, let's slow this down and look at the science of the imaginary argument loop. Let's unpack what your brain is doing when it turns silence into a courtroom. Number 1. Your brain is trying to finish an unfinished emotional moment. This looks like replaying a conversation where you were misunderstood, dismissed, embarrassed, or interrupted. You might imagine saying the thing you wish you had said. You might rewrite the scene so you finally sound calm, powerful, and impossible to misread. Here's what most people miss. Your brain hates emotional loose ends. When something feels unresolved, your nervous system keeps tagging it as not finished. It does not always know the difference between an actual threat and an emotional wound that still feels open. So it reopens the scene. It gives you another chance. It lets you explain yourself again. The cost is that you never really leave the room. Even if the conversation ended hours ago, your body keeps acting like it is still happening. The switch is simple, but powerful. Instead of asking, "What should I have said?" ask, "What emotion did I not get to complete?" Maybe it was anger. Maybe hurt. Maybe fear. Maybe the need to be understood. When you name the emotion, your brain does not have to keep using imaginary dialogue to point at it. Number 2. Your mind rehearses conflict because uncertainty feels unsafe. This looks like preparing for a conversation before there is any evidence it will go badly. You imagine someone being disappointed. You imagine them accusing you. You imagine yourself being cornered. Wait, here's the strange part. Your brain may actually feel calmer for a few seconds while rehearsing. Because planning creates the illusion of control. If you can predict every possible attack, maybe you will not be caught off guard. If you can prepare every sentence, maybe you will not freeze. If you can imagine the worst, maybe the real thing will feel easier. But the brain learns through repetition. So every time you rehearse the argument, your body receives the message: this conflict is likely. Prepare. The cost is that your imagination becomes evidence. The more you rehearse, the more real the threat feels. The switch is to separate preparation from prediction. You can say, "I am allowed to prepare for a conversation, but I do not need to emotionally live through 10 versions of it." Then prepare one calm sentence. For example, "I want to explain what I meant without turning this into a fight." One sentence is preparation. 10 imaginary battles is rumination. That difference matters. Number 3. Your brain may be protecting an old version of you. This looks like overreacting internally to situations that seem small on the outside. Someone takes a long time to reply. Someone uses a slightly cold tone. Someone says, "We need to talk." And suddenly your mind is already defending, explaining, apologizing, or preparing to be blamed. The wild part is, your reaction might not be about this exact moment. It might be about a pattern your brain remembers. If you grew up around unpredictable moods, harsh criticism, emotional shutdowns, or people who made you feel responsible for their reactions, your brain may have learned to scan for conflict early. That does not mean you are damaged. It means your system adapted. As a kid, reading the room can become a survival skill. You learn tone, you learn silence, you learn facial expressions, you learn when to speak, when to shrink, when to explain, when to disappear. And later in life, that same skill can become exhausting. Here is the superpower hidden inside it. You may be incredibly emotionally perceptive. You might notice shifts that others miss. You might sense tension quickly. You might be thoughtful with your words because you know words can hurt. But the cost comes when perception turns into prediction. Noticing someone is quiet is perception. Deciding they are angry and rehearsing a defense for an hour is prediction. The switch is to tell your brain, "Thank you for trying to protect me. But we are not in the old room anymore." That one sentence may sound small, but it creates distance between your past training and your present reality. Number 4. Imaginary arguments let you feel powerful when you felt powerless. This looks like winning the argument in your head. You say everything perfectly. They finally understand. They regret what they said. You walk away calm and untouchable. It gets weirder. Sometimes these mental arguments are not really about the other person. They are about restoring dignity. If someone made you feel small, your brain tries to build a version of the scene where you are no longer small. That makes sense. Your mind wants justice. It wants repair. It wants the emotional math to balance. But the cost is that you may feel a brief hit of power, followed by more anger, more tension, and more mental noise. The argument feels satisfying for a second, but it keeps the wound active. The switch is to ask, what would make me feel powerful in real life? Not just in my head? Maybe it is setting a boundary. Maybe it is writing down what you wish you could say, then not sending it. Maybe it is choosing not to explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. Maybe it is calmly saying, "That did not feel okay to me." Real power is usually quieter than the fantasy version. And this connects to something deeper we will touch in the next video. When your brain cannot change what happened, it often tries to replay it until it finds a version where you finally feel in control. That is one reason past mistakes can feel so sticky. Number 5. Your brain confuses self-defense with self-worth. This looks like needing to prove that you are not selfish, not rude, not lazy, not dramatic, not the bad person. You build arguments not because you love conflict, but because being misunderstood feels threatening to your identity. Here's what most people miss. Some people are not rehearsing arguments because they want to win. They are rehearsing because they are terrified of being seen incorrectly. Maybe you want to make sure they know your intention. Maybe you want to prove you did care. Maybe you want to show you were not trying to hurt anyone. The cost is that your worth becomes tied to whether another person finally understands you. And that is a painful place to live, because you cannot fully control someone else's interpretation. The switch is to practice this line. I can clarify myself without chasing a verdict. That means you can explain once. You can be honest. You can take responsibility where it is yours. But you do not have to keep mentally defending your existence to an imaginary judge. Sometimes peace begins when you stop treating every misunderstanding as an emergency. Number 6. Your body may be addicted to the alert state. This does not mean you enjoy it. It means your nervous system may be used to high mental activity. This looks like feeling strangely uncomfortable when things are calm. No messages, no drama, no problem to solve, and then your brain reaches for something unfinished, uncertain, or emotionally charged. The mind says, let's review that conversation again. And suddenly your body has a task. The strange part is that stress can become familiar. Not healthy, not pleasant, but familiar. If your brain is used to scanning, preparing, defending, and explaining, quiet can feel suspicious. The cost is that calm starts to feel boring, and conflict starts to feel like focus. The switch is to give your brain a different job. Not, stop thinking. That usually does not work. Instead, for the next 2 minutes, My job is to notice 5 things in the room. Or, my job is to relax my shoulders and breathe slower. Or, my job is to write the argument title, not the whole argument. For example, fear of being blamed. That is the title. You do not need to watch the whole movie. Number 7. You might be trying to prevent regret. This looks like rehearsing because you do not want to walk into a future conversation and later think, why did I not say that? You want the perfect response, the perfect tone, the perfect timing, the perfect emotional balance. But perfection is a trap in conflict. Real conversations are messy. People interrupt. Feelings shift. You may not remember every line. And that is normal. The cost is that you spend your peace trying to guarantee a version of yourself that does not make mistakes. The switch is to aim for grounded, not perfect. A grounded person can pause. A grounded person can say, let me think about that. A grounded person can return later and say, I want to say this more clearly. You do not need a perfect script to be safe. You need permission to be human in real time. Imagine this. You send a message to a friend, hey, are we still good for Saturday? They do not reply for 3 hours. At first, you tell yourself they are probably busy. But then your brain starts building a case. Maybe they are annoyed. Maybe you said something wrong yesterday. Maybe they think you are needy. Maybe they are talking about you in another group chat. Now your body is activated. You are not just waiting for a reply anymore. You are standing in a courtroom inside your own head. Your friend says, in your imagination, you always make things weird. And instantly, your defense begins. I do not always make things weird. I was just asking a normal question. You are the one being distant. Then imaginary them says something colder. Then imaginary you become sharper. By the time your phone finally lights up, your heart jumps. The message says, sorry. Phone died. Yes, Saturday works. That is it. No conflict. No hidden meaning. No emotional trial. But your body has already lived through the argument. And this is why imaginary arguments are so draining. You are not only thinking, you are feeling, bracing, proving, defending, and recovering from something that never physically happened. So the goal is not to shame yourself for reacting. The goal is to catch the moment when your brain turns uncertainty into a threat. Right there, you can say, I do not have enough information to start the trial. That one sentence can interrupt the whole courtroom. So let's reframe this. Your imaginary arguments are not proof that you are weak. They are proof that your brain is trying to protect connection, identity, dignity, and safety. But protection becomes a problem when it steals the peace it was supposed to defend. Here is a tiny action you can use today. When the argument starts, pause and write 3 words. Story or fact? Then list 1 fact. Fact, they have not replied. Story, they are angry at me. Fact, they sounded quiet. Story, they hate what I said. This does not magically erase the feeling, but it gives your thinking a floor to stand on. And if this kind of clarity helps, you will probably like what we do here, because this channel is about turning confusing mental patterns into something you can actually understand. For the next 24 hours, catch one imaginary argument and ask, what am I trying to protect? Drop your answer in the comments, safety, dignity, control, or being understood? And subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Because it connects directly to this. Why you can't stop thinking about past mistakes. That is where we look at why the brain keeps reopening yesterday like it is still unfinished. I will meet you in the next one.